Hello and welcome to Verbling. Hi there, I'm Teacher Oakley. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. My apologies for that. Late running class compounded with some technical problems. But anyway, I'm here now, and for this class here in Verbling, we're going to be doing some grammar. Today, we're going to be looking at the past continuous verb tense. Yesterday, we looked at present. Tomorrow, we'll be looking at the future continuous at this particular time slot here on Verbling. So hope you can join me for all three. Today, past continuous verb tense. We're going to look at how it is formed. And then we're going to look at the different uses, the purposes, why and how we use this tense. And students will have a chance to practice forming their own sentences to make sure they understand the usage. That's the plan. Okay, so hello and welcome to the class, Hussein. Welcome back, I should say. Okay.
Nice to see you, Ed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good to see you too. Okay. Well, here we go. No reason not to get started. Let's take a look at this verb tense. I'm going to do a screen share and talk to you about how we use this thing. First of all, the form. Let's take a look. Okay. All right. Past continuous verb tense is formed by using the past verb to be, either was or were, depending, of course, on if we're talking first, second, or third person. So, for example, I was, he was, she was, it was, singular and plural. They were, we were, you were. And then the present participle, which is to say the base form of the verb. So, the base form of the verb plus ing is the present participle. Okay, so how does it look in a sentence? Well, looks like this. We have in a normal positive sentence, we have the subject noun. Here it's you. Then the verb form altogether considered as the verb. You were studying. Okay, and then when she called, actually we have another clause added here. Okay, so, all right, this is going to be common. We'll discuss more about that later. In the question form, as always, in English, we're always going to take the first auxiliary. In this case, there's only one word. Auxiliary is the helper verb, which helps to create a verb tense. So we're going to take that first auxiliary and put it in the front of the sentence, followed by the subject noun. So in other words, we're reversing the subject noun and the first auxiliary. Still, and then followed by the present participle. Were you studying when she called? All right. And then finally, in the negative, the form similar to the positive statement, the subject noun will go first. The negative not will follow the first auxiliary. You were not studying when she called. In spoken English, it would be very common to contract the form, the were not, and just speak it as weren't. You weren't studying when she called. Okay, well, that's the basics on how it's formed. Let's get to the uses. All right, number one, important to understand this. Okay, we use the past continuous to indicate that a longer action in the past was interrupted, as noted in this diagram here. The interruption is usually, notice usually, not always, a shorter action which is expressed with another verb in the simple past. So the red line here in the diagram, this symbolizes the past continuous verb, the verb with a continuous action, an action with duration. The purple X symbolizes another action that happened sometime during the progress of the past continuous action. So that purple X represents the simple past. Or that purple X can be just an interruption in time, a time word or phrase which indicates a specific time in the past, obviously, that interrupted the action. Notice that the past continuous action both starts in the past, again, as indicated by the red line, it starts in the past and it's finished. It's over. The red line is over in the past before the present. If not, if that red line continued to the present, we'd have to be talking about the perfect tenses. Okay. All right, let's see how this looks in example sentences. Okay, for example, I was watching TV when she called. Watching TV, the red line, something you do over a period of time. When she called, that purple X represents the phone ringing. Ring, ring. That's it. That's the idea. Now, notice I can put up my dependent clause in the first part of the sentence. When the phone rang, she was writing a letter. Okay. Doesn't matter which clause I use first. When I have my dependent clause first, I need to follow it with a comma. When I have the dependent clause second, as in the first example, notice no comma, not necessary. Not only not necessary, you should not have a comma. Notice use of when. When with the clause with the simple past verb tense. In our third example, while we were having the picnic, it started to rain. Notice here, when we use while to introduce a subordinate clause with the duration past continuous verb, then simple past is in the other independent clause. All right, this is very important to note. Using when and while with this particular use of past continuous is, of course, extremely common. What were you doing when the earthquake started in the question form? Fine. Of course, we have reversed the auxiliary verb and the subject noun. If we have a question word, who, what, where, why, when, that will go first. Then the normal inversion of the auxiliary, first auxiliary and the subject noun. I was listening to my iPod, so I didn't hear the fire alarm. Here we see a different connector, a connecting subordinator. So, but okay, it works the same way, basically. So it's possible we don't always have to use when or while. When or while is common. We can use other connector conjunctions, connective conjunctions. Okay, well, all right, a lot more examples. In the negative, you were not listening to me. All right, so a negative, something you were not doing over a period of time. when I told you to turn the oven off. Okay. All right, the rest pretty much the same thing. Sammy was waiting for us when we got off the plane. Okay. Notice the verbs we're using: listening, sleeping, waiting, are all verbs that take time to do. Watching TV, writing, having, okay, doing or having, a picnic, okay, whatever. All right. What were you doing when you broke your leg? Notice that in the dialogue example, I don't necessarily have to refer to the interrupted action because it's already been spoken. We know that we're talking about when you broke your leg. The A responds just with the present continuous. All right, it's already well understood that he means I was snowboarding when he broke his leg. All right, let's give this one a try, shall we, Hussein? All right, try forming me a sentence where, okay, an interrupting action, one action interrupts another action of duration.
Give you sentence.
Yeah, give it a try.
Okay. I was sleeping. When telephone ring it. Telephone.
But of course, ring is a irregular verb.
Ring.
Rang. Yeah,
Ring.
that's it. An irregular verb. And since we know, it's very obvious that you're talking about the telephone that is near you when you're sleeping. We have to use the, because we know, we can tell which telephone it is. It's obvious.
Yes.
So very good. I was sleeping when the telephone rang. That's it. Excellent. Okay. Very simple. An interrupting action. Okay. All right. Very unusual to only have one person in this class.
Very interesting.
Yeah, well, it's
sorry, okay. Early time in Verblin, I tried to private lesson, maybe 5-6 lesson, and really was very boring. And really, not because of maybe expensive, but very was boring. And when I hear other lessons, surprised me, and immediately I joined other things. You know.
Well, I do know. Frankly, some people really don't like to be taught in a group, and some people really enjoy it. It depends on what is your cup of tea, I suppose. So some people prefer one or the other. Some people do both. I don't know. Very true. Okay. So yeah, all right. That's the idea. Let's try it again, but this time we're gonna use a specific time as an interruption. It's exactly the same as the use we just looked at. Okay. Except that we talk about a specific time that interrupts the action of duration. So something like this. Last night at 6 p.m. There you go. A specific time. At 6 p.m. I was eating dinner. All right. So in this case, notice the diagram is exactly the same. I was eating dinner is the red line. It takes a while to eat dinner. Okay. Takes duration. 6 o'clock is represented by the purple X. So it's really the same idea.
I am sorry, just a minute. Can I answer?
Phone? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Your phone.
Hello. Salam, salam, salam. This is. Uh-huh.
Might want to mute yourself.
Answer
Okay.
for you. Thank you.
Okay. Well. Okay. I will mute you or not. Yes. There we go. We don't need to know your private phone conversations. Okay. All right. Hussein, I was trying to avoid listening to your phone conversation. Okay. All right. At midnight. All right. Again, with a specific time. We were still driving through the desert. Use of still in this type of sentence is very common because still really shows the idea that you had been doing the action driving and that you're going to continue driving, and maybe that you're even a little upset by the fact that this action is taking a long duration. So this would be very common.
Uh,
Uh,
I'm sorry, 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 please. For
no
me,
problem.
working hours, but I
Okay.
want. Okay, no problem. Will continue. Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
no problem. Okay. Um, just all right. Well, this time the interrupting time is a specific time. In these sentences, last night at 6, at midnight, yesterday at this time. Uh, okay. The interrupting action. That's basically it. It's pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
Um, uh, okay. All right. To note, in the simple past, a specific time is used to show when an action began or finished. It could be either. But the past continuous, the specific time only interrupts the action. That says nothing about where you are, near the beginning or near the end of the action. It doesn't really express that. So something important to understand, using the past simple, last night at 6 p.m. I ate dinner. What this means is the person started eating at 6 p.m. Uh, if you say last night at 6 p.m. I was eating dinner, you're somewhere in the middle. We don't know if you just started 5 seconds ago or you're 5 seconds from finishing. We have no idea. So that's uh, basically okay. What we're saying when we're using this usage, we're just saying I was somewhere in the middle of it. We're not actually expressing the idea where. Um, okay, let me welcome Ali to the class. Hello. Hi, Ali.
Hello, Erkin. Hello, Erkin. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Has
How
it,
are you?
yeah, I'm doing well. It has been a long time
It's
not
been
to
a
see
while.
you.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been a while, yeah. See you.
Good to see you again as well. Okay. Well, we're looking at the past continuous verb tense here, and specifically how a specific time, it has to be a specific time, specific is key, will interrupt an action that that takes a lot of time, that takes duration. So here's some examples. Ali, would you like to give it a try using these examples to help you out?
Yeah, just you want me to read that example or
No, 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 no. I would like you to
give you?
create.
Gi-
Yes, give me an
Yeah,
example.
yeah, yeah. Um, uh, uh, I think that let me remember that something
Okay.
happened in the past.
All right. Okay. And
Uh, yeah, yeah. It's yesterday. Uh, I was going to my work.
mhm.
Is that correct?
Not quite. and here's why. Let me explain. Yesterday is a big chunk of time. Notice in the sentence before the example, yesterday at this time. It has to
Yeah.
be a specific time because it has to be a bam, one-time quick interruption. Okay, so this doesn't quite work. Now, okay, so in other words, you'd have to say something like yesterday at specific time. Whatever, 9 a.m., for example. I was going to my work, like that. Now, one other thing, Ali, because you use the subject noun I, you don't really need the possessive my work. It's not really necessary because it's kind of obvious. If you're going to work, probably it's your work, right? So it's not necessary. Yeah. Okay, well, then this is fine. This means you're in somewhere in the process of going to work, commuting, or what have you, something like that. Okay. Hussein, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You want to give this a try, forming a sentence? Now, every one of these sentences uses the time clause in the beginning of the sentence, but that's
Okay.
not necessary. You can use the preposition at, and then the specific time at the end of the sentence. That's also very normal. But anyway, okay, I'm gonna give it a try. Yeah.
I was eating my breakfast at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
5 o'clock in the morning. When they called me outside.
Now this is interesting. One, because I no, I didn't because I forgot how to write 5 o'clock. Okay, there we go. 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't need these hyphens here. 5 o'clock in the morning when they called me outside. Now this is interesting because, okay, look, we have an independent clause with the past continuous to show this continuous action, the red line, all right? Then at 5 o'clock in the morning, oh, well, look, we have a purple X, which is a specific time. Aha! And then you've added another clause, when they called me outside. Okay, which is our first use in interrupting action in the past. So you're actually doing both use 1 and use 2 at the same time. Great. This is actually okay. And this happens. When I explain uses of verb tenses to students, I always have to explain that frequently you will be accomplishing more than one use at the same time. This happens a lot. This is a very good example. This sentence is a perfect sentence. So you're using the past 2 reasons at the same time. So what? That's okay. That's very normal. All right? Okay. This happens a lot with all the verb tenses. It is definitely always possible to kill kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. Let's look at another important usage of the past continuous. Parallel actions. These lines in the diagram are parallel lines. They never cross. So parallel actions would we would be talking about two actions, and of course these are actions that take duration. They're not X's, it's a long line. So two actions that are happening at the same time. Okay, so for example, I was studying while he was making dinner. Very simple. One red line, you're studying. The other red line, somebody making dinner. Pretty basic. While Ellen was reading, Tim was watching television. Okay, and instead of Tim watching television takes time, reading takes time, it takes duration. So you would use past continuous for both of those actions. Okay. In the question form, were you listening while he was talking? Okay. Two things that take duration at the same time. Okay. Well, look at this example. Two continuous actions. I wasn't paying attention while I was writing the letter. And then a connective here. So I made several mistakes. Now this is interesting because now we're doing three things at once, like Hussein's example earlier. Not only do we have two parallel actions, but we also have an interrupting action. Actually, that's repeating interrupted action. I made several mistakes. I made a mistake, another mistake, another mistake. All right, here we are also doing two things at once with the sentence. Again, very normal, very not unusual at all. Another question form, what were you doing while you were waiting? Okay. Thomas wasn't working, and I wasn't working either. All right. Fine. The next example, we have three things going on at the same time. Nothing wrong with that either. They were eating dinner, discussing their plans, and having a good time, all at once. Obviously, if that were a diagram, that would be three red lines. Okay, no problem with that. That's perfectly fine. Okay. Hussein, would you like to try to form a sentence where two continuous actions are happening at once?
Okay.
Or more. I don't care.
Yes. Okay. When they watching television, watching TV, while we preparing cook, we when while we were preparing food for dinner.
Now, this is important. Okay, first of all, I don't have any problem with the back end of the sentence. While we were preparing food for dinner, that's fine. Here's something you just can't do. You can't have when and while in the same sentence. Well, not in this sentence anyway. I suppose in a much longer, complex sentence. The problem here is you don't have any independent clause. You don't have, you have two subordinate clauses. So this isn't a real sentence. It's not possible here. So we can just get rid of when, all right? Capitalize the T. They, and again, you have to keep the continuity of the verb tense. So what were? Yeah, there we go. They were watching TV while we were preparing food for dinner. Okay. Not a problem. Now it's fine. Okay, and yeah. Okay, all right. It can be negative. Things you're not doing over a period of time. Thomas wasn't working and I wasn't working either. Okay. That's not a problem either. Okay. So that's the idea. Try to avoid when and while in the same sentence.
Okay.
You usually need one or the other, but not both. And sometimes you need one and not the other. More often than not, you can use either one. It just depends how you structure your sentence. Okay, here we go. Another usage of the past continuous is to show atmosphere, what it was like. In English, we often use a series of parallel actions to describe the atmosphere. Okay, what it felt like, especially in writing. Okay, but it's possible in speaking. So something of this nature, for example, when I walked into the office, all right, interrupting action, there it is. Again, with the predicated or started with when to show the interrupting action with the simple past tense. When I walked into the office, several people were busily typing. Action that's going on that you interrupted when you walked in. Some were talking on the phones. The boss was yelling directions, and customers were waiting to be helped. Okay, a whole series of phrases, well, clauses, to sort of give the idea of what was happening, all the actions that were taking place. Okay. One customer was yelling at a secretary and waving his hands. Others were complaining to each other about the bad service. Okay, so this entire paragraph is devised basically to show the atmosphere, what it was like when I walked into the office. Okay, so this is kind of a useful thing to know. We don't really have to practice this. It's the same idea as expressing parallel actions. Just the idea that we may even do a series of parallel actions to show to give background, what's something, a setting, what it was like.
Sorry, okay.
Yes.
I heard on atmosphere, word atmosphere only about maybe weather atmosphere one meaning.
Okay. Well, let me give you a couple examples. If you, for example, you might want to bring your wife to a romantic dinner, have a romantic dinner in a restaurant. So you would bring her to a restaurant where there's candlelight, candles on the table. It's a little bit dark. Women always look better when it's a little bit dark. and Hussein, so do you. You look a little better when it's a little bit dark. Okay. It's a little bit dark. Maybe there are violins playing. Probably the waiter is wearing a very nice suit, white shirt, black pants, maybe flowers on the table. Perhaps you would pick a booth that was far away from other people to have privacy. That would be, I would say that the restaurant has a romantic atmosphere.
Sorry, I know this situation on the atmosphere and
Okay.
Yes, atmosphere.
Like that.
But for that example, atmosphere, I don't understand.
This example?
Yes, I don't understand for this.
Okay, well, the atmosphere in this office is somewhat chaotic, out of control, unorganized. The atmosphere was one of frantic busyness. People yelling and screaming and jumping and running around. So the atmosphere, the feeling is probably not very comfortable. The boss is yelling. There's people complaining.
Opposite.
Yeah, quite the opposite of romantic, that's for sure.
Yes.
Quite far away from that. Yeah. So, okay. The architecture, decorations, they can give atmosphere, and also the actions that everyone is doing, will also help to explain basically the setting. So, in other words, all you're doing is taking parallel actions to kind of help you explain the setting, the place where something happens. Okay, here we have another use, a very, very specific use, repetition and irritation with always. Okay, we looked at this yesterday with the present continuous. Same thing to talk about the past. Using the word always or perhaps the adverb constantly to express the idea that something is very irritating or shocking. Could be surprising, shocking. Often happened in the past or happened repeatedly, as you can see in the diagram, over and over and over again, X, 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 X. The idea is we use this, usually, we use this to give the idea that the speaker says this because he thinks negatively about it. We can also use the expression used to, which is very common in English. But this way of using past continuous shows the negative emotion. All right. Okay, and basically it would look like this. All right, she was always coming to class late. Obviously, okay, I would say this because I was annoyed that she was always coming to class late. He was constantly talking. He annoyed everyone. All right, get the idea. I didn't like them because they were always complaining. Oh, okay. All right, so the idea here is you're using the past continuous in conjunction with always or constantly to show that the fact that they were doing this over and over again is very annoying for you. Hussein, you want to try this one out?
Try to.
Sure.
For this context.
Yeah, right.
Yes. She was speaking. She was speaking constantly.
Okay.
Constantly, and annoyed everyone, and annoyed everyone. You have.
Okay. Well, again. Okay. Again, you got to be careful about the adverb placement. It really needs to come in front of the verb you're modifying. It's pretty important in this usage. So she was constantly speaking. You may also use and annoying everyone. Well, here's an interesting, something kind of interesting. The adverb and the auxiliary verb can act on more than one verb. You can say it like this. She was constantly speaking and annoying everyone. This means she was constantly speaking and she was constantly annoying everyone. You don't need to repeat
Mhm.
the auxiliary verb, which creates the verb tense, or the adverb, actually. You can do it like this as well. Okay, well, yeah, this is all right. Now, see, we would never do it with like never. We would never do this, for example. She was never coming late to class. We wouldn't do that to express that we were happy about it. The opposite. Okay, we wouldn't do this. I would simply say, well, what would I say, Hussein? How would I say this?
She was uh, coming late without never.
Well, um,
She was
basically, if I
coming
want to
late.
express the idea, I would just use simple past.
Yes.
She never
She
came
was.
late to class. She was a great student,
Uh,
like that.
she never came late to class.
Okay, so if I wanted to express the opposite, all right, I would just use simple past. That's what I wanted to show you. We basically use this past continuous with always or constantly because it's very negative, or we feel negatively about it. You're not
Understand.
you're not going to use it in a positive way.
Mhm. Used for that.
Okay, quick review: while and when. All right, clauses. Groups of words which have meaning. Basically, they're like a sentence. An independent clause is a sentence. It can exist by itself as a sentence. When we add a subordinator to it, we create a dependent clause. It's not a sentence. It needs an independent clause to attach to. So it can't exist without an independent clause. So it's not a complete sentence. All right, there are many, many subordinators, words, which create subordinate clauses. Common ones are when, such as when she called, okay, when it bit me, and also while she was sleeping, while he was surfing. Okay, when you talk about things in the past, when is most often used followed by simple past, and while usually is followed by past continuous, because while expresses the idea, while itself the word means during that time. Okay, so I was studying when she called. While I was studying, she called. All right, that's it. Just remember that we use when for the simple past and while for the past continuous. Okay, can't really talk about a continuous verb tense without mentioning that there are verbs in English, most specifically stative verbs, non-continuous verbs, which again are called stative verbs. They describe a state, like love. He's in the state, he loves someone, or ownership, or verbs that have to do with thinking, or the way things smell, touch, taste. These kinds of verbs describe the state of being of an object. We can't use them with ing or continuous verb tenses. It's just not possible. The verb to be, as a matter of fact, is something that's called a mixed verb. If I mean the way somebody is behaving or acting, I can use it with ing. The children are being naughty. That's fine. Are being, that is a use present continuous, but the children were being naughty. Great, past continuous, not a problem. But I can't say I was being I was being at the train station for 3 hours. That doesn't make sense. I would simply say I was at the train station for 3 hours. This is wrong. Jane was being at my house when you arrived. That doesn't make sense. It's not possible. So you have to just use simple past. The idea is still there that she was probably there for a duration of time. It's just simply not possible to use a continuous tense for this meaning of the verb. So Jane was at my house when you arrived. Even though we have an interrupting action and everything in our first usage, just can't do it. Real quick, placement of adverbs, especially the grammatical adverbs, grammar adverbs. If you're modifying the verb, please, again, put them right in front of the verb. You were just studying when she called. Were you just studying when she called? Doesn't matter if it's a statement or a question. No difference. It's modifying or acting on the verb, so put it where it belongs, right in front of the verb. You can't go wrong that way. Sometimes you can move adverbs around and it will still make sense. Okay. Okay, still you were studying when she called. You were still studying when she called. You were studying still when she called. That's fine. You can probably move still around. But for example, just you were studying when she called, that means something completely different. That means only you were studying. You just were studying. That again changes the meaning. You were studying just doesn't even make sense. So just, you cannot move around. So here's the deal. Put the adverb in front of the verb and you can't go wrong. Move it around and you're risking making mistakes or changing the meaning of the sentence. Okay, last thing to look at, active and passive. All right, in an active sentence, the subject noun, here, the salesman does the action. The salesman was helping. Who was he helping? The customer, the object noun. Okay, when the thief came into the store. Fine, that is an active sentence. In a passive sentence, if we wanted to make this sentence, the active sentence, into a passive, we would take the object noun, because in a passive sentence, the action happens to the subject. The customer was being helped. We want to add who did the action. We usually use a prepositional phrase with by, as in this example, by the salesman when the thief came into the store. Okay, notice the construction of the passive past continuous. As always, all passives, all of them, doesn't even matter, past, present, future, perfect, simple, continuous. All passives use the past participle of the verb. So here it's helped, of the main verb. The verb tense is shown by looking at the participle and the verb to be. You use the verb to be here. Okay, the present participle, being, with was being. This would be an active past continuous. He was being crazy. Okay, fine. So there you go. There's the construction. Was being, and then the past participle. So All passives use past participle. Then in front of that, we use the verb to be with whatever normal auxiliaries are used to form the verb tense that we want to form. Hussein, you want to give this a try? Try to form a passive using this example here.
The patients.
Sorry?
The patients was the patient was waiting, was being waiting, the patient in hospital maybe was being waiting, was being waiting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
By the doctor. By the doctor.
Okay. Well, okay.
When the
okay.
One day earthquake
Okay.
happened.
Okay.
Earthquake
Okay. Now let's take a look at this. Wait a second.
happened.
The patient was okay.
Waiting by doctor.
Here we have to say we need the past participle of the main verb was being. Now that shows us that it is the past continuous. The patient was being waited. I suppose we can use that. Doesn't really exist. We can't say. Okay. Okay. We can't say the patient was being waited. That doesn't make sense. But a person can be waited on. Of course, now normally we're waited on by a waiter or a waitress in a restaurant. But okay, it does mean being served, so it's more or less possible.
In our country, not possible.
Yeah.
For us, possible.
The patient was being waited on by the doctor. We normally would never say this in English.
Yes,
okay. You know, maybe this would be much more likely. The customer was being waited on by the waiter. There you go. Now that would make sense. All right. Now that would be here. This would be, and actually I would have to include on. This would have to be a phrasal. It's actually a phrasal verb. You're waited on. That can happen to you. All right. So that is possible. Okay. We are at our time, and I am starving, so I'm going to go get my lunch, and I'll be back later.
Thank you very much. See you later. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, and have a great day, Hussein. See you later on.
Okay.
Bye-bye.